Welcome. This is about an e-commerce application written in React, and I'm running it locally. But the way it is done is all these products you're seeing, they're coming from a backend like this, where I have a WordPress installation with WooCommerce. All these products are coming here via the WooCommerce REST API. And let's go over the functionality a little, because here featured products that we can always add to cart, and it's going to add a number one here. We can also go to the single product page, and we can also add from here shopping cart. We'll keep filling up, and we can go to the checkout if we want, but in this case let's go to the shop, and this is what the shop's looking like. I'm using the masonry layout to build this, and here also we can add to cart, and we can press this to go to the cart. Here we get to change the quantities, reduce the quantities, the numbers changes here, and we can remove the whole product if we don't want them, and we can ultimately clear the whole thing and start over from the shop or home. So here let's go start with the shop, and let's add this car, this one, and let's go with this one. Right, with all three, let's go to the shopping cart, and let's change our mind, remove this, go to the checkout, and this is what the checkout page will look like. Here we have a custom form, and here I managed to integrate the Stripe API and which will help us finish this transaction. And this form is also protected like that. If somebody clicks here with an empty form, and it will stop you. And from here also we can always hit edit cart and go back, and let's say we want to add an extra product there. Now let's go back and finish the transaction. So in here let's start with a name, and let's with the email.com, and an address, a city, a state, and the zip would be okay. So that being done, now let's add a credit card number. I'm going to use one of the fake card numbers that's given to us by Stripe. Nothing but 4 2s, and let's give it 12 months and 2026. CVC would be 321, or whatever number you like. Now if I hit this, we will actually finish the transaction by paying via Stripe. But before I click on it, I just wanted to show you something at the back end. As we know, the products are coming from here, and once the transaction is over, we're going to create an order here. And also this is a separate one. This is a server-based middleware which I wrote using Express and Node.js, and this is all its job is to listen in, and it has details. I mean, we're going to go over this detail very soon, but for now know that this is written following the Stripe API. So this middleware is going to be listening to a transaction. So as soon as we click pay now here, that middleware will take it all the way to the Stripe account, which I am running as in a developer mode or a test mode, right? So this test data should be showing up here. So let's finish it. Let's go click here, pay now. Boom. And we have success, and as you can see here, it actually created an order, and the order has all the necessary data we just put in, the pricing and time and address, the person's name, etc. And if we look back in here, we will see that our middleware actually picked up on it, and this is where it actually communicated with the Stripe server backend And to verify this transaction, let's go to the Stripe payment and let's refresh, and we find our latest payment by Mask right here. And if we decide to go in, we will find all the data that we just put in. And just to make sure, from the back end, we go here and click on WooCommerce orders, and right here we have this transaction just created an order. If we click on it, we will see exactly what we ordered, the pricing, that it's paid, and everything, right? So this is all being done inside WooCommerce, but it was initiated right here from a React application. Hopefully you stick around for the series. Lots of good stuff coming in. We're going to go ahead and show how the whole thing is done. All right, so we are at the back of the application where all the code is. The order I will follow when to explain everything will be according to the pages. I mean, we have few main pages like the home page, we have the single product page, and then we have the shop page, cart page, and checkout page, right? So we're gonna go through them one by one, and whenever necessary, we will reference back to components, contexts, reducers, services, etc. But for now, before we get started, I just wanted you to familiarize yourself with the overall structure of the application. To keep it simple, I avoided not doing it with Next.js because that's a little bit advanced. I see courses out there, they do that. But I just followed a simple create React app approach so that somewhat beginners can actually catch up with it without even learning Next.js, and who has familiarity with WordPress and WooCommerce, they can jump on and get started. And in here I have few directories. I mean, as you know, everything starts at indexed, and then app.js, and these guys will be talking to these guys where all the components are. Here I have common stuff like a cart icon, product, etc., which we will go over in much more detail later. I even have a Formic library, but in this project I haven't used anything, so this you can easily ignore this one. And under the general, I have the navigation bar, which we'll get back to, and we have some layout components, custom layout components that I built. One is basically the content. It's going to wrap around the content, and it has some sass attached to it for styling. And the other one is page structure. This will get us to create some dynamic pages where just by changing some of the attributes, we can have a wide page or a page with some certain margins. And overall, I have used the React Bootstrap to create the responsiveness and most other components. So on that website, you can actually have all the necessary code if you're curious. And then I have context folder. Here I needed two contexts, the cart and for the product context. And then I have some helpers where it will help us with some calculations. Then I have some like the hero image. I'm just bringing it statically, which is basically this guy right here. And then I have pages, as you saw before. Then I have reducer. Only in the cart's case, I'm using the cart reducer. We'll go over that in much more detail later. And then I have services, where I'm only using this HTTP service to connect to WooCommerce. You can actually take a look at it right here. I'll go over that in much more detail, but for now, this is what it looks like. And this is responsible for our entire communication between this React app and the WooCommerce. And later you can see the Stripe integration here. There is a payment form and the Stripe container. These are all built according to the Stripe API documentation, and we will also walk through all of these. Now let's quickly focus on this index.js. This is just a basic index.js, but we're bringing in the browser router, the app, and most importantly, two of my context providers right here, one for product, one for cart, and we're wrapping all of them around the main guy, the app, right? And now let's go look at what app looks like. So the app.js is basically structuring the navigation bar and declaring all the routes. It's simple enough, and as you can see, we're calling in all these pages from the pages folders, some components, the main bar, the nav bar is coming from component, so on and so forth, and even some, the scroll top, which is a helper function, is bringing in here. But other than that, I just wanted to show this main nav bar, which is under the general. And this is what the nav bar is looking like. As you can see, the home and shop is right there. It's right there. I mean, it is basically a React Bootstrap navigation bar, and you can find all the details if you visit this website. And just to make it look the way I want it to be, I just added some CSS, custom CSS here, which is actually Sass, SCSS. All right, now let's get started with the home page next. All right, so this is our home page, right? So we have a hero image, we have a go to the shop button, and we have a tiny little article and image, and this is the most important part. Here we are bringing in the featured products from the WooCommerce. All right, so this is our home page. And as you can see, we are bringing in use context from React, use history. These are all the hooks that React and React Router DOM gives us. And then from my layout structure here, under component and layout right here, I'm bringing in page to structure the page. And from React Bootstrap, which is this, I'm bringing in the necessary components, row, column, button, and container, and also the content, which is this guy right here. Once again, these are just to structure the layout. And then most importantly, we have this product context. This is coming from this folder right here, product context, right? We'll get there soon, don't worry. And then we have a little bit of CSS going. The animate.css, I just imported it using npm, and this actually helps us with some sort of animations, small animations. And then the home.scss is gonna give us the styling we need for our home page, this stuff right here. So, and also the hero image, I'm statically calling it from my image folder right here. Also, as we go along, you will see some static content. I could have easily pulled them in from the WordPress itself, but I just wanted to keep our focus on the e-commerce and WooCommerce structure of it, and how React is actually talking to the WooCommerce. So to maintain that, I just used a little bit of static content. So, feel free to, make them dynamic as you wish. As soon as we begin, we are accessing the product context and bringing in the featured products and creating a component, a small component, by looping through those results, right? So now let's, actually we will go into the detail a little bit later. Just let me go through the overall page structure here. And here I used the use history hook to create a button function, so that I can, as soon as this button is clicked, the start shopping button, this function will take us to the top and then push us to the shop page. And in here, this is the top of the application, where I'm just simply calling the hero image. And as you can see, if I refresh this, the image slowly arrives, right? And also, as soon as we do, we're kind of connecting to WooCommerce and getting all the products and separately calling the featured products, right? We'll get to it very soon, but for now, just remember that animation you just saw is happening because of these code and animate.css. There's a whole website dedicated for this. Please feel free to investigate yourself. So this is where our big car hero image is placed, and here is our button to start shopping, and this function will take us to the shop. And this is the middle section. This is what I was talking about. Here I have some static images. This image actually coming from the WordPress library, media library, and this static text, I just put it in, and this constitutes the middle part, this part right here. And then is the most important part, where the featured products are shown, and this is where I'm calling in that component, which is being created right here through the loop, and we're looping through this item that we just collected from the product context, right? And we're looping through it and creating, using the React Bootstrap, using this kind of structure, the columns and everything, right? And all the hover CSS is coming from this guy right here. And that being said, now let's look into this item right here, featured. How is it coming from this product context? All right, so before we go into that context, especially for the featured products, just take a look at here. So this set is bringing us the original data from WooCommerce, and in this case 3 of them to be exact, and this is our full set of data, altogether 18 items, and this is also coming from WooCommerce, and this is bringing in all data, right? So now let's go to the code. Okay, so in here at the home page at the very beginning, we are bringing in that featured products, right? Those 3 I just showed you. So let's see how they are coming in, and we are bringing them in from product context, right? Product context, it's under context folder, and this guy right here. And if you look up, you'll see we're bringing in a whole bunch of things: create context, use state, use effect, etc. from React. And from our HTTP service, we're bringing in this function, get data, right? So as soon as we do, we're creating a context page. So to do that, first thing we have to do, we have to export this by using that create context hook. And this is the same thing we're going to be using in here when we finalize our context provider. So let's see how this is happening. So at the beginning, these are the usual use state stuff. We're just declaring some variables of the products, featured products, and is pending is so that we can actually control the loading spinner, right? And default state is false. And at the very beginning, we start by creating URLs. All product URLs is just products, and featured products URL is just products question mark featured equals true. And to give you a better look at this is basically we have to go back to the WordPress, because this is where everything starts. This is the base URL for the WooCommerce REST API. See the regular homepage URL, and then wp-json-wc-v3- and in here, if you put in the other stuff like products, this is where they should show up, right? But clearly it's saying WooCommerce REST cannot be viewed because it is not open for public, like the WordPress REST API. It needs a whole bunch of things. It needs a setup, it needs some security codes and everything. So that's why this is not going to show you the data, but this is the origin of the URL right here. So this is pretty much what we are creating. For the featured product, we should just add a question mark and featured equals true. Now these guys needs to work with WooCommerce directly, and how we do it. So this is how. See, remember we brought in get data. So in this get data, we're bringing all products by throwing in all products URL, which is nothing but products, right? And this is the one console. This is the one giving us this result right here, because it's bringing all of them. And for the featured, we just provided the featured product URL, which is this guy right here. And this console log is showing us the featured product data. These guys right here. Now let's see what is this get data doing. And it is situated in HTTP service, right? So let's go find services and HTTP service. Right here, HTTP service, and this is where we get to see how we are actually communicating with the WooCommerce REST API. And this is for this I actually use something that WooCommerce people created themselves. This is called WooCommerce API-Node.js client. And this is where they gave us all the structures, how to build it, the communication. So feel free to investigate and take a look at it for yourself. Now these guys, I just pulled it in with npm, and then I just imported. And this is where I'm giving them the URL of my actual WordPress website. And this is what they're adding, wc/v3, as we saw here, right here, if you look. So basically, that API module that we just showed via npm, that is actually filling this up. This is this wp-json, it is filling it up, but it's collecting the data from multiple places, like the URL from what we give it here, URL, and then wcn-v3 from here as a version, and it's filling it in wp-json, and then the products and such, this part of the URL, we are providing them from under this product context. This is where we are actually creating these URLs and sending them to the get data. So let's look into that HTTP service again. So once this object is created, WooCommerce, right, via following their API structure, where we actually had to provide the consumer key and this consumer secret, which basically we can get from right here. Basically what you have to do, just WooCommerce settings, and then advanced and REST API. Right here they let you build the key, and the consumer key and the secret key, right? So mine, once you build it, I mean, the secret key will never ever be visible, right? You can always, you have to keep a record for yourself. So in here, I just wanted to show how to create it. Like, let's say if I want to add another key, this is what they're going to give us, and let's say AAA, whatever, generate the key, and this is how they do it. You can use your QR code if you have some other app or something, you're attaching those two, or you can just copy them and keep them in a special place, and just the way I did it. So basically this is where you collect the keys from, right? And then once you remove it, you can no longer access those. So be careful once you collect those, make sure you have them, you preserve them in a right place. And from there, let's go back, and that's what they're asking right here. And I also used a module called .env. See, .env, where this is an npm module. What that does is let me write to a file called .env, and all this variable, I can put any data I like, and then I can just call them in like this: process.env.react app consumer key, process.env react app consumer secret. So these are the variables basically I have to use in the .env file, and my .env file is right here. But since I have my keys in there, I'm not gonna take a look at it, but this is the way to build it properly. And you should always keep your .env file out of the GitHub or any public places. Just so move them out and just push these to the repositories, so that your secret keys are not going to be exposed, right? So anyway, after this WooCommerce object is built, and in here I actually had to do this, I actually had to bring in Axios, even though I am not using Axios here, but these guys who build this module, they are using Axios, and for some reason Axios and WooCommerce REST API have some sort of something going on, which is a known issue, by the way, that causes this. So anytime, let's say if I refresh, and then it gives us an error, right? Just refuse to set unsafe header, whatever, blah, 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 right? So this is coming from WooCommerce API. So this is something going on between Axios and them. And before I found this code and I used it to actually delete the user agent headers, and that took care of the issue before, but afterwards they probably changed something, and even this is not working. So basically what I'm trying to say is, I mean, this whole part of the code we can just disable without an issue. Even the Axios, we don't need that. I was just using this extra code to resolve this issue, but I can promise you this is a very harmless issue, and hopefully WooCommerce people will do something about it. But until then, we can move on with what we're doing without issue, no problem, and even without this extra code hanging on. So anyway, now let's look at the get data. So this is where I'm using that WooCommerce object. In this constant WooCom data, I am making an async request, awaiting it, and using WooCommerce.get. And this is where I'm actually providing that URL that you just saw in here in the context, product context. See, these are the URLs. So I'm just calling get data one time with products to get all the data, all the product data, and in here the featured product URL, where I'm just augmenting it by a question mark and featured equals true, so that REST API gives me only the featured item data. And just to look in the back, in here, if you go back and go under products, to make it featured product, all you have to do is just click here, boom, boom, right. Just 3 times and that's it. It automatically goes in as featured items. I mean, it doesn't need an extra category or anything. So that way, once those are starred, the result you get using this, the get data featured product URL, which is this, and this goes to the HTTP service, creates this object, and send it with this get function URL. And I'm putting an option in there, per page 20, just give me 20 per page, and then return the WooCom data. If there's an error, catch it and display it. And we have another one here just to set the order, but we'll explain it later when we actually need it to, right? When we go to the checkout page where we're actually doing this, calling this function. So that's when we're going to come back and make sure we understand this properly. Other than that, this is our get data. This is how, utilizing this WooCommerce API and the module, we are collecting those data, which eventually coming in here, product context. And product context is being called in here at the home page, because once we collect this data, right, this WooCom products, featured products, what we do, remember this guy right here, create context, product context, we created this using this hook, and in the end, we just return the whole thing, product context dot provider, we just wrap the whole thing, and whatever is in between, our children, which is all the content of the home page or any other pages that we're going to send this provider, right? And in here, we're going to send these data objects as data items. For example, this product here, like right here with the WooCom products.data, we just set products, set featured products, right? And this is where we call those state variables, right? Products and featured, and we are filling them up in here using this data and sending them via context. And this context provider pretty much wraps around everything. If you go to index, you can see the product context provider is right here. So anything in between, app that has all the other pages will have access to the data we just send them. These guys, the product, featured, and is pending. So now these guys, we can just simply call them locally. I mean, I did not need all the other data here. I just needed the featured. So this featured coming from this featured right here. This product context is sending this data, and we're calling them in home page. And as soon as we call them, the featured data, all these 3 items right here, which are featured right here in the WooCommerce, and we're mapping through them and creating this module using React Bootstrap. And because of that, we're getting a result like this, and we're calling them right there. And also now let's focus on these featured items, right? Let's go up here. To explain it properly, we have to find out what this guy is doing. Product, right? This is a module that actually coming from the components, common, and product. So let's go there. Components, common, and product. So in here, we are actually sending that product, as you can see right here. See, it's inside a loop, and the product is going in one by one, and in here in this component we are actually passing that product as a parameter. So now let's look into the product. It has the usual stuff on top. It is also bringing in some function called in cart and cart context, etc. But we will explain them later. But for now, we just stick to this, look at the structure of this product. I'm calling in card from the React Bootstrap and the button. And this is where the image is going, the card body. And here, based on this in cart, which is coming from this helper module, let's go take a quick look under helpers. And we have an in cart here. Basically, it's a helper function where it will take the product and cart items and look through the cart items to find that specific product. So if the product is not present in that cart, it will go ahead and display this text on the button, or display this button, add to cart. But if somebody clicks on it, then this in cart will return that the product is already in the cart. So instead of showing this button, it will show this button, which is add more. Pretty much this is the functionality I'm talking about. See, add to cart right here, because our cart is currently empty, right? But as soon as I click here, our cart is no longer empty, and this button changes from add to cart to add more. And this is exactly what is happening, thus explains the product item. And all these card body, everything, you can always check on this website to find all the necessary code. Feel free to play around with them. So with this product item, we can say we just completed explaining our home page, top to bottom. Next, let's check out the single product page. Okay, so this time we're going to go ahead and take a look at what happens when we click here. It goes to a single product page. And now let's go look at what's happening in the code. So this is supposed to be our single product page. And I know it's quite a handful, but don't panic, just stay with me here, okay? We're gonna go step by step, not to worry. So first, let's just see what we got here. We have use state, context, and use effect from React. And then we have use params hook, use history and link from React Router DOM. And as usual, we have our React Bootstrap stuff, and then page and content that we went over before. These are the layout components. And in here, as you can see, we have the product context and cart context. And is in cart, as we have seen before in the home page. This is coming from a helper, and get data from HTTP service, right? And I'm also, to perform some stuff, I'm using Lodash. We'll explain it when we get to that functionality. This is a very helpful library. You can actually find it in here, lodash.com, and you can always go documentation and find all the functionality from here, right? So for now, we're gonna focus on just the construction of this default page. And to notice something here, when you look at the URL, you can see actually there is an ID involved, product/ID. Where that's come from? Let's go to the product, and if you look at the link here, you'll see /product/product ID as a variable, right? So anytime a single product has been clicked on, it shows that product's ID in the URL. That being said, so using that, that URL thing, we use params, because use params is coming from React router DOM, and using that we collect that ID, this ID right here. And once we do, we also have like use history, we bring in the history, and we bring product from product context, which is all the products, which is the result of all products URL using get data. And what is all products? The URL is just adding products to the end of this guy right here. The URL, WP-JSON, WC, V3, and products. This is what I mean. When you go there and provide it with all the necessary keys, it will show you the products. As a result, we see them right here. All right, so now let's go back to the code, and this is where we were. So now we basically got products from the product context, and this products is being sent like this to all the children, and our single product page happens to be one of the children. And now let's follow the flow, right? So we have products from our product context, which once again these guys right here. So initially what we're doing is we're declaring a variable constant as prod and looking through all these products that we just received and trying to find the actual one product, the single product, by putting it through the item. Every single item it's going to scan through and it's going to collect the one where whatever item we're sending, item.id, if it matches that ID that we just collected from the URL right here. That would be this 26 here, right? So we're going to check all the products by matching the item ID, and that's how we're collecting this product right here. And before we go through this, guys, let's just see what's happening. So once we find the prod, and this would be if it finds undefined. If it is not undefined, when we just first click, for example, let's go back and first just click here and come here, because at this point it is actually holding the context, right? It actually has all the products, right? So first what we do, take the prod and set product, which is this use state variable, right? Product. It is just created so that it can hold a single product. So as soon as we click, it goes to that and finds the products. Inside the products, it finds the single item matching the items from the URL ID, right? Once that happens, we just set the product. So at this point, the product actually has one single product according to this ID in the URL, right? So once we do, it just goes out there and finds the product's title, product.name, product.price, because now it will have all the data available right here, right? And it will match this item right here, this ID. So now that we have all our single product data available, so it is not a problem to set it all in here. One extra thing we do have to do here is that for some reason, when we try to get like the way we're getting like product.name, product.price, the image doesn't, is not easy to collect, the image source, right? So that's why I had to create another use state variable image. And let's look at what they're doing with the image, right? So let's go, image is an array, right? And the first item from that image is the URL. See, the source comes inside that, first item, and this is the source, right? To collect it, you would have to do images and then third bracket 0 and then dot src to collect this. And when I tried that, it didn't work. So what I had to do, this is where I had to use Lodash dot first, this function right here, dot first. So what it would do, it would go ahead and collect the first item, prod.images, which is this images, and it collected that 0 item and put it in main image, and then we took that and put it in main image.src and set image, which gave us this character right here, image, which had the source perfectly. So now all we had to do just use image under the source, and that gave us this image perfectly, right? We just had to do a little bit of work here because for some reason that other type did not work, where it was supposed to just be the prod and then third bracket, which would have a 0 item and dot src, right? This was gonna give us the actual item, but try that, it doesn't work. Logically, it should work. It should be just images 0 and src, but it didn't work. So set product, we just had whatever we found here and we put it up. So now that solves one problem, right? Which is, let's go to home, and as soon as we click on it, everything comes up, because right now it actually has the context, this product context. It actually has the products where we can actually collect the data just by finding it or parsing through it, right? But here's the problem. Everything is fine here, but as soon as somebody hits refresh, look what happens. See, once you hit refresh, it actually goes out there and collects the data again. So by now, it is whatever we actually passed it through from the other page, all this context data will go away. So when you do a refresh, you have to be ready for it, and that's where this logic comes in. In case this prod is undefined, because this prod will be undefined once you refresh, because this product collected from the context will no longer be there. So what's going to happen is, once you find this product equals undefined, then you're going to have to create another function and rerun get data once again, and this time you're going to go ahead and single product URL, which is this guy right here. Single product URL products/ID. The same ID we're gonna provide and create this product/ID, and then recall the get data with a single product URL, which is this guy. And now let's go to the get data HTTP in here. So if you just provide that URL product/ID, the same function will collect that single product data and bring it in for you like nothing happened. And that's why whenever you try to refresh, it takes a little bit of time, because this is the first time, once again, it's actually making the call, a fresh call to the WooCommerce repository and collecting a single product. But if you're coming from this page, which is already has the context, right? So as soon as you click on it, it shows up right away. Not when you're refreshing, because when you do, it is actually making another call. And this is where the situation is, where the prod is still available, right? So when the prod is available, you just skip this if logic, you go through the else, and right away you actually collect the data from this context products. It's already there for you. But unless somebody clicks on here, like refreshes it, only then you will find yourself not having this context data. It's not going to bring in that context anymore. So then the product will be undefined, the prod, and then you're going to have to create a single URI, which is product/ID, which could have happened here like this. Like if you're having a product and then slash, let's say 15 or whatever, then it is going to bring in a single product, and this would be your complete URL. And this is where you need to look at product/14, which is the product/the ID, the same ID we collected before using use param. Now your page is protected in case somebody refreshes it and collects the new data. And if it is not the case, you're always going to get the data straight from the context, which is this guy right here. And that's why all that work was necessary under the use effect. And once again, you can see easily the difference. We're coming from the home page, everything is fine. Click on it, it just shows up right away. But as soon as you refresh, it takes a bit of time to load them up because it's making a fresh call to the WooCommerce source. That being said, now let's see, once we have our product, we can always just grab information, product.name, product.price, source will always be image because it's already created right here using this function with lodash_first. So that would be our function. And using that, we just went ahead and collected this image, and then we can call it main image.source, and we're setting that as this use effect variable image, and then we can call it anywhere we like, source. And these are the stuff we actually have to do because we're dealing with a ready-made API. We're dealing with a REST API that is already in here, right? Already, and it's never gonna be like ready for you. You're gonna have to make it ready, right? Like here, you're gonna have to go down there and look at the structure, images. It actually comes as an array, and you're gonna have to pluck the first one, and then .src will give us the image URL. So that being said, now we know how this structure got created. And here's a thing I should mention, like the description. I had to use this line here, dangerously set inner HTML. I mean, this is because otherwise, you know, what description that coming in, it comes with some HTML attached to it, like this description. As you can see here, if I make it bigger, see there's the P item and such. Sometimes some other H1 or whatever might come. So just so that it doesn't show up here, because if you don't use this, neutralize this HTML, the HTML will start showing up here inside your application. Like you will see the P tag here, right? So you want to use this to get rid of that. And also, only thing we're going to leave out here today is that the add to cart, the add more, and all those cart related stuff. Like for example, in here we're bringing in the cart context and this add product, cart item, and add more, etc. in cart. All this stuff we're not going to explain at the moment because they will be cleared out once we talk about the cart situation, when we go over the cart page, right? So at this point we can say we just went over our home page and the single product page. For now, that will be it for our single product page and the home page. Please stick around, good stuff are coming. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please smash the like button and the subscribe button. This will help me bring more free contents like this to you every week. Thanks again.